What's going on, everybody? Nick here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to post content automatically onto Webflow using make.com. There are a number of gotchas in Webflow, specifically related to its text formatting, that have made this very difficult for a lot of people. I'm here to dispel those myths completely. I'm also going to be talking about some advanced automation concepts today, like buffers, and basically just some future proofing that you can do to ensure that your make.com skills always stay ahead of the curve. If you guys want to get a handle on Webflow and make.com, improve your automation skills, learn a little bit about buffers, text formatting, all that stuff, then this is the video for you. Stay tuned and let's get into it. So 2 reasons why I'm doing this video. The first is Webflow has a lot of gotchas when you try and publish content automatically, whether or not you're using Make or just their API or Zapier or whatever. Webflow's formatting can be pretty tricky. And so in this video, I'm going to show you how to convert from my preferred format, which is just a Google Doc, into a format that is perfect for Webflow and that allows you to get like nice headings, get things like nicely spaced and that sort of deal. Basically, if I just go on a Webflow site that I've whipped up here, click through one of their blog posts, you'll see that I have these beautiful headings, the spacing is perfect, I have bullet points, I have all that stuff. So I'll show you how to do that. And the second reason I'm doing this is because I actually show in my community, essentially like a method to build a whole automation agency within 14 days. And the very first video was me building an automation agency site in less than an hour, but I did it on Webflow. So just yesterday, I posted another video showing people how to syndicate content in WordPress. And I just had a bunch of people in my community be like, yo, Nick, we're building this stuff out in Webflow. Can you make a video for how to do it on that as well? So that's sort of the inspiration for this. Pretty straightforward stuff, if I'm being honest. And if you watch the WordPress video, you're probably 70 or 80% of the way there. Just know that Webflow is a very different platform, and so they require different formatting, and we have to be a little bit smarter about how we're going to lay the content out. I'm also going to show you how to get images. I'm not going to be AI generating these images. I'll just be using another hack that I use for Unsplash. It allows us to generate, or rather pull, stock images that are overwhelmingly likely to be relevant to whatever it is that you're blogging about, and you can just plug and play this into any blogging flow. You don't need to the purpose of my systems is usually just to be as high ROI as possible and fast and easy to implement as possible. So this is just like the quick and dirty, super slick way, to put a blog post with an image together in Webflow. Okay, without further ado, let's get into it. We're going to be pulling from this content calendar. It's the same content calendar that I was pulling from before. Essentially what this is a title, a word count, primary keyword, secondary keyword, internal link, external link, additional instructions. Then we have an outline doc, and then we have an article doc. So if I click through this article doc for AI and process automation expectations versus reality, we see here that we have a Google document that was created by AI, an AI system that I generated quite a while ago. And then this AI system wrote an article on this topic. What we're going to be doing is we're basically going to be taking this and then putting it on Webflow. And there are a bunch of plugins and stuff like that do this for you, but they're paid. I'm going to show you how to do it in a way that's basically free, aside from the make.com operations, and also infinitely scalable, which is pretty cool. So the goal is we want to get this puppy on this puppy. Well, how do we do it? Obviously, we're going to be doing this in Make, so let me just pop open a make.com scenario here. I have insufficient rights. Make.com is taking my rights away. Okay, so I'm going to call this scenario, let's just do like Google Sheet to Webflow blog. Maybe we'll do search Google Sheet rows, post on Webflow blog. Okay, great. So that's number 1. Number 2, let me just show you what actually posting on Webflow looks like. If you click on this button and then type Webflow, you'll see that they have an entire suite, essentially an entire family of modules that you can use to do a variety of things. Not necessarily just publish a blog, but you can do things like get a site, you can publish sites automatically, you can get items, create items, that's what we're going to be doing. You can add products, add SKUs if you're running like the e-commerce offer that they have, create folders, form submissions, and then you can also make an API call. And if you go to the Webflow API, this is probably one of the dopest APIs of all time. It's huge. You have just so many different things that you can do. So the fact that they allow you to do all this stuff is pretty sick, if I'm being honest. And we're going to be using a very small fraction of that. But what I'm going to do here is, because what we're doing is we are updating a collection. That's technically what this is called. Inside of a collection, collections are made of items. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be essentially creating an item inside of a collection, and that collection is going to be our blog post collection. So you don't need to know too much about this. It's quite self-explanatory, but for now, just use the create an item endpoint. So if you do this, you're going to have to connect to your Webflow. You're going to have to make your Webflow connection, And I have another scenario editor open here. So I'm just doing this to show you guys what this looks like. You have to click save, and then you're gonna have to log into your Webflow site. And then down here, you're gonna have to authorize. I'm gonna go to Workflow Loop, which is the name of my website, and I'm gonna authorize app. Now, if it says request failed or something, don't worry. That happens sometimes. The connector isn't perfect. All you do is you exit out of it and the connection will still have occurred. Now we're going to choose the site, and I'm going to be choosing my site Workflow Loop. And then I can choose my collection. Now the template that I use to create my website has a bunch of collections built in. You have like careers, work categories, team members. Collections are basically just sort of like an abstraction that it's like your own little database that allows you to create templated content for each element in the collection. Like for instance, instead of me manually creating the element for every individual team member, I can now just create one element for team members, and then I can just populate that with all of the team members in my team members collection. So it's my own way of like basically making like a data type, if that makes sense. Anywho, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be adding to the collection blog posts. And then you'll see that Webflow reveals a bunch of fields to you, like name, date of publishing, author, category, thumbnail image, this is going to be important, post summary, and then post body as well. There's also slug. I believe if you don't put a slug in, it'll just automatically generate one for you, so we're not going to be putting a slug in. I'm going to try that out. But you'll see that if you click on these, most of these fields are required. And in make.com, anytime a field is bolded, like the title here, like collection is bolded, that means that it is something that is required for the scenario to work. So we're actually going to have to go through and we're going to have to add all of these fields. For now, because I just want to show you guys what an example post looks like, I'm just going to go, this is an example. The date of publishing, I'm just going to choose now. So I'm going to go over to my calendar and then go to variables, click now. For author, I'm just going to pick a random person here. It's pulling the author from the list of team members, which makes perfect sense. So this is a template where there was a team member called Diane Russell, and that's what I'm selecting. Category, I'm just going to hard code this as entrepreneurship for now. Thumbnail image. I'm just going to go to Unsplash because we're going to be using Unsplash to do my cute little hack, as I mentioned. And then I'm just going to open this image in new tab, and then I'm just going to copy this image URL in. And that's sufficient. There's not going to be any alternate text. So this is an example post summary. This is an example article body. And I'm not going to do a slug because, as I mentioned, I want to test this. So now we have our create an item module ready. All I'm going to do is right click it and click run this module only. This is only going to run that module. Not like there are too many other modules, let's be real. But this will be sufficient for our purposes. And then what you end up with is it basically just recapping all the fields that you added. Now is the variable that I put in. It's saying that it is June 4th, 2024 at 7:31 p.m. That's probably because the time zone for this is in like Vancouver and I'm out here in Calgary, so it's about an hour difference. It's just verifying all the information here that I've uploaded, which is neat. But let's actually go into Webflow and see it for ourselves. So I'm gonna exit out of all of these things and go right over here. This is just a blog post that I did when I was testing this out. And then if you're unfamiliar with the Webflow layout, that's okay, you don't have to be. I'll just head over to the CMS button and then blog posts. And then it's telling me I don't have any because I need to refresh this. I've essentially automatically been signed out, and it does that for security purposes. So let me just re-sign in. Good Lord, I have too many password managers. Okay, so we want to go to the CMS and then go to blog posts. And then the one that we just published was this is an example. So it was created June 4th, 10:31 p.m. because this is in a different time zone. I got a lot of time zones. But you'll see that it says this is an example, this is an example, this is an example article body, this is an example post summary. Then we have our image as well with our category, our author, all that stuff. If we actually want to see this live, just for the demonstrative purposes, I'm going to go to page. I'm going to discard these changes. I'll go to page and then blog. And then you'll see this is the blog post that I just uploaded. And if I click on this blog post, we'll go to a blog page where I can see just the image and then the body. And then, there's some templated features here, like the name of the team member is here. And then there's a related blog section down below. Okay, so this is pretty cool, right? We just built a very simple one-click manual automation, which manual automation is a funny term. What an oxymoron. But we built like a one-click, to run automation that creates an article called This is an Example. And that's been super helpful. But there are a couple other things that we need to do in order to make this work. What you'll notice is down here it just says this is an example article body. So the question then becomes, okay, like what if we want different types of text? What if we want like a header, an H1, an H2, an H3? What if we want like bullet points, right? How do we represent that in a format that Webflow understands? And unfortunately, Webflow only takes in HTML. It doesn't take in Markdown, it doesn't take in any really other format. And so in order to make the content work for Webflow, we basically need to take whatever the content is and then convert it into HTML and then post it on Webflow. So, if I go to my Google Doc that I had earlier, get this content calendar, and then I go to this article doc, like this text here, this is an HTML. Like if we wanted this to work in Webflow, we basically need to find a way to do this. Oops, good God, my typing's poor today. This would be like an H2, this would be like a \H2. Right, we need to go through all of the article essentially and then add these tags. And in the previous video on WordPress, I showed a way that you could use AI to do this. And I think the way to do AI is cool. I'm just going to show you another way to do it that I think is a little bit more procedural and that saves you from having to maybe like spend AI credits on digesting a large chunk of text. And this way works just as well. Some would probably consider it working better since it retains the exact format of the initial text. And that's what I'm going to do next. So, why don't we do this? Just for demonstrative purposes, why don't I get a Google Doc and let me just show you what this looks like. If I were to try and just publish this Google Doc as is, I'm going to hard code the ID in. You can get a Google Doc ID by going after the \d \, and then before the \edit. So I'm just going to go to this make scenario, and then I'm going to get the document ID. The count I'm going to be using is probably this one. I don't actually know. Let me see. We have to do some connecting here. Yes. And then I should, oh man, I think I wrote the wrong email there. That's funny, whatever. Let me just get the content of this document. So I got the content of this document. We have the article title, we have the body, we have this big content object, just super long and it's very overwhelming. Really the one that we have and the one that most people are going to want to use is this text content here, where there's like an H1, it says 10 effective ways to nurture mental health at work, \H1, right? This is the change that I just made to this article, and I'm pulling it in. So, if we just try and dump this directly into Webflow as is, and I'm just gonna do this as an example, let me take the H1s out so you can see what it's gonna look like. This isn't enough. We're just gonna get a bunch of ugly text laid out all over the place. So if I go down to, text content, just pump it in and then run once. The element that we have now created in our Webflow blog, if I go back to my CMS and then go to blog posts, it's now 7 items. It just looks like this. What we really want is oops, no, we do not want that. Hold on. What we really want is we want this. And then we want, this. And we want to do that for basically all the headings in the text. We want to do that for all the bullet points and yada, yada. So the way that we're going to do this is going to be pretty straightforward. First things first, I just have a bunch of these, so I'm just going to close them all, make my life a little bit easier. First things first, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to test this using the one Google Doc whose idea I know and I'm hard coding, and then after I'll show you how to take one step back and abstract it away to a list of Google Docs like on this sheet. But first things first, this get content of a document module. This is the module that the vast majority of people use to deal with Google Docs. We're not actually going to be using that. We're going to be using one called download a document instead, which is pretty neat. And the reason why I haven't really talked about this yet in any of my videos is because it makes use of binary. And binary is a lot of the time like a very difficult concept for people to understand, and most people don't want to have anything to do with it. I like to stay away from it wherever possible because it just overcomplicates my life. But in this video, I'll show you how to use it. Basically, the download a document, in contrast to the get a content of a document, allows you to hard code a doc just like I did before. So if I grab this and then I paste this in here, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be downloading an HTML version of this document that looks like this. If I click run this module only, instead of me getting the content, I'm actually downloading it. You'll see the only two fields here are file name and then data. And data is this huge string, or basically huge buffer filled with binary, which is really, really ugly, and most people don't know how to do anything with it. Well, if I could just peel back the curtain a little bit, All that binary really is it's just like another format of your data. And you can convert between binary and then all of the other formats, text, number, string, PDF, MP4, whatever, as long as you have the correct function. And so what this is this is basically the HTML content of my document. It's just, this is translated into a language that I'm currently unable to understand or view. But what we can do is we can take this and then translate that back into HTML. And so that's what we're going to be doing in the set multiple variables module. So I'm going to be calling this just HTML. And then all I need to do is I just need to wrap this binary data in the toString function. And it will take the data, which is currently in the format binary, and it'll convert it into a readable string for me, and ultimately for Webflow. So if I click on the set multiple variables module now, you'll see that I've taken all of those weird numbers and hexadecimal figures, and I've turned them back into HTML, which is what I have here. And it's very long HTML, and it's not actually going to work for our purposes, which is why you need to do a couple of hacks like I'm going to show you. But it is HTML nonetheless. So that's pretty neat. Now, what I'll do is I'll show you what this looks like if you just dump this into Webflow, and it's still not going to work. And then I'll show you how to fix it and how to make it nice. So I'm just going to dump in the post body here, and then I'm going to say this is an example HTML article. We're going to run once. It's going to do the whole flow, so it's going to download the document, it's going to convert it from buffer, from binary in the buffer into HTML, then it's going to create the item in Webflow. And if I discard these changes and then refresh the CMS, we'll see that we have, oh, I guess mine hasn't actually popped up. I might need to just refresh totally. Let's go back to the CMS here. Okay, we have this is an example HTML article. And then what you see is we have the headings and stuff like that, but we also have a bunch of silly stuff that looks really dumb. And what this is basically like CSS styling. And if I go to my blog post here, if I go to the blog post and then just give it a little click, you'll see that this looks really ugly. It's closer to what we want than what we had before, but it's still pretty ugly. And it kind of like doesn't take any of the style that the rest of the Webflow site has. It's sort of spaced out weirdly. It's weird indents, things aren't, the lines aren't very pretty. If you contrast that at the beginning of this video where I showed you like a stock article, that was just templated, there's a lot is left to be desired. And so the way that we're going to fix this is we are going to do a couple of very interesting procedures. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take this string, this HTML, and then I'm going to, and you can do this, not just for this use case, I do this stuff all the time. It's going to seem pretty silly, but you can convert the HTML to Markdown. So we're going to feed in this HTML, convert into Markdown. And then I'm just going to run this and show you guys what that looks like. Markdown is another language similar to HTML that just has different formatting. Instead of you doing like a colon H1 or a left caret H1 and then right caret and then a backslash thing to do the H1, it's just like a number sign. So you save a few characters, which makes it really useful for artificial intelligence applications with these large language models. But you see, that the formatting is similar, right? It's the same sort of idea, one number sign for an H1, two number signs for an H2, that sort of thing. So what we have now is we have everything in Markdown format. But what we can do now is we can very quickly and easily process this string in Make because it's just a lot simpler for us to do so. And then what we can do is we can take that Markdown, we can reconvert it back into HTML, and that's going to look perfect and it's going to work really well. So that's what I'm going to be doing here. Essentially, we have this HTML to Markdown, right? I'm going to be feeding this back into a Markdown to HTML module, but what I'm going to do is, for the purposes of this, I'm going to test this out. I'm just going to paste all this in. What we're going to do is we are going to take all of this text and then we are going to remove all of this styling stuff up at the top so that when we reconvert it back into HTML, it only has like the number signs, and that's going to make an H1. This is going to be an H2. This is going to be an H2. This is going to be bullet points. It's just going to look a lot prettier. So what we have to do is we have to feed in that Markdown. And then if you click on this, you'll notice that there's a pattern here that this is always going to follow. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this string. And a lot of people would probably split this just by like I don't know, like the presence of this hashtag, but I'm going to be a little bit more precise. I'm going to do it by the presence of this hashtag, and then I'm going to do 2 number lines, and then I'm going to do the presence of this like left curly bracket. And that's just going to enable me to basically take this, which I think is quite unique. It's the likelihood of this reoccurring in one of the articles that I'm doing is extremely small. And then it enables me to like hone in on that and split only that, and then I can regenerate the rest later. So I'm going to take this Markdown, and then I'm going to split it by the presence of, I think it was a left curly bracket, and then a new line, and then a number sign. And then I'm going to split it that way. And then I'm going to run this, and I just want to see what pops up here. So, oh, sorry, I used a Markdown HTML module. I shouldn't be doing that. I should use a one of these. We need to use the set variable here. So recreate this. I'm going to call, instead of convert to HTML, I'll say strip CSS. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this Markdown and then do that split again. So split that Markdown by the presence of this, and then 2 new lines, and then one of these. Yeah, we can't actually do the text processing in the Markdown to HTML module. So what we have now is we have HTML, and then we have an array with 2 objects. The first is this CSS, which was sort of mucking up our style and just looks really ugly. And then the second is the actual article. Now I used the hashtag as a character to do the splitting with, so it's removed it, but we can just like regenerate it pretty easily. What we want to do is we only want to get the second result, and then I'm just going to regenerate the hashtag by adding it here and then doing a space. So now if I run this once, this will be in perfect Markdown format. And now if I pass this into my Markdown, my Markdown to HTML module here. Oh, this is also called HTML, so let me say stripped HTML. Let's do stripped Markdown. That's a more descriptive term, and then we want 7 stripped Markdown. You can't see it because I need to reconnect the module, but this is just a quick hack that allows us to do it faster. Okay, now what we have is we have basically taken the Markdown and we've converted it just into like vanilla HTML, which doesn't have all of the other information that the first HTML had, which was all the way back over here. And this first HTML just looked really ugly. It had all these weird styles. It was just, this was the reason why our Webflow stuff wasn't working, but it's sort of like hidden behind the scenes, right? But now we just have like no style characters, no nothing. It's just the pure H2s, and then it's even done the favor of attaching IDs to all of the headings so that if we wanted to like hyperlink them later, we could. And that's just, you know, makes vanilla Markdown to HTML processor. So now if we take this article and then we pump this in to post body and run this completely, and let me just change the title here so I can, this is a beautiful, properly formatted HTML article. Now it will look gorgeous. I'm going to go back here to my Webflow site. I'll just go back to blog for now. And then I need to refresh the CMS actually. So let me go back to blog posts. Now we see that we have all those nice sexy headings. And then if we go back to this blog post here, and then I got to refresh the page, we'll see that we have this beautiful properly formatted HTML article. If I give it a click, we now have all the text basically looking exactly like how we want it to. H2s are huge, right? Granted, I'm realizing that if we have the title up here, we're probably not going to need this title. So that might be something that we can fix right now. But the rest of this is quite nice. We have the bullet points, we have like the number signs. Everything is nice and taken care of, and just part of the style of our template, which is what we wanted initially. Okay, now while I'm still here, I'm going to like make a couple of additional edits to this, and I'm just going to make the flow a little bit sexier. I'm going to get the title in, and then I'm going to show you guys how to generate or pull relevant images. So first things first, why don't we fix that title? We need this to be 10 effective ways to nurture whatever, right? So we basically want this to be the title of the piece. We could do some text formatting on this. Yeah, that's probably simpler. Okay, that's much simpler. If the format of this is going to be the same as that all the time, then that's pretty easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed in the file name here, which is an A, and then it's a colon, and then it's the title of whatever we want, and then afterwards it's a .html. So what we want to do is I'm just going to split this at the colon space. So I'll do colon and then I'll do a space. And then I want to get the second result, and then I want to split this again at the .html, and then I want to get the first result. This may look like black magic to you, but you can just pause the video and run through the logic, unless I screwed up, in which case I will eat my words. But this is just going to allow us to extract the specific part of the file name that we care about. Okay, the data publishing now, that seems correct to me. Category, I mean, you can just set up the categories however you want. You could, for instance, have like a category column here in the Google Doc, in the Google Sheet or something that allows you to generate this. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. I'm just going to click entrepreneurship. Let's talk about the thumbnail image. What a lot of people don't realize is Unsplash, one of the best stock photo image resources on planet Earth, has like a very sneaky hidden feature where if you type source.unsplash.com/random and then you put a question mark and you put whatever you want and then press enter, it will actually go and generate or pull an image from their API that corresponds to your search term. And so what we can do is we can actually employ this in Webflow to pull a random image every time we create a blog post, even if we don't have an image in our blog post at all. This saves us from having to do the manual step of maybe getting somebody to go and pull an image, because now we can just use this feature. So I could just type in business here or something like that. Or I could pull in from my keywords. I could do, I don't know, just like the primary keyword. That might be a little bit rough just because I don't know how many stock photos have a tag called process automation realistically. So I'm probably just going to do business. But this will still enable us to basically have like a new post that is businessy every time. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second. Post summary. There are a couple things that you can do to generate post summaries. One, you could you could have it in the Google Sheet, as I mentioned earlier, as a column. Or you could just have AI take the article and then generate a post summary. And so that's what I did in the previous video that I did on WordPress. So I'm just going to do the same thing here. I'm going to go to OpenAI and just add a completion at the very end here. And then I'm just going to do 4096 max tokens. GPT-4o will be my model, and then the role will be system. I'm going to have it identify as a helpful, intelligent writing assistant. This is what I always do. Although make sure if you make it identify as a helpful, intelligent writing assistant, it doesn't screw up the word writing or assistant. And then I'm going to say, read the following article and write a short one sentence summary. The summary will be posted on our blog. Write nothing except for the summary. Then I'm going to go to user and I'll say article. I'm just going to feed in the stripped markdown because that seems pretty simple to me. And then we'll just await the assistant's response. And then down here, I'm just going to pump in that summary to the post summary page or post summary field using the result variable. That looks pretty good to me. Okay, why don't we run through this and see what this looks like. Should get the title correctly, unless I'm a moron. I might just be an idiot. Okay, yeah, it looks like the name was correct. So 10 effective ways to nurture mental health at work. The post summary was to foster mental wellness and boost productivity. This guide outlines 10 effective strategies for creating a mentally healthy work environment. That sounds like a great summary to me. Then if I go back to Webflow, if I go back to our blog here, I keep on forgetting where I am in Webflow. It's pretty embarrassing. Then if I refresh this puppy, you will see that we now have a new blog post and we have automatically generated or pulled an image from Unsplash that looks fantastic for our article, 10 Effective Ways to Nurture Mental Health at Work, which even includes this little excerpt, which is nice. When you click on it, you have the, we didn't fix that. I'll fix that right now. But we have the entire article, which is nicely formatted with the headings and with the formatting that I was talking about before, bullet points and all that stuff. Okay, great. So while I'm at it, let me just fix this. And the way that I'm going to pull the title out of the text so that the only title is up here is I'm just going to do some text splitting. We know that the Markdown here, let me think. We could just pull like the second line only. We could just take out the first line. So we could go up until a new line and then we could just remove it. That's something that we could do. Actually, now that I think about it, an easier way to do this would probably be just to strip out the H1. So I could just go split this, and then I could split it at the presence of this H1. Then I could get, no, sorry, the presence of this backslash H1, and then I could just get the second result, because then I would get only the stuff that I want. And because I'm doing it in the HTML, not in the Markdown, I'm not gonna have to make use of any new lines, which is nice. Okay, so that should solve my problem. So while I'm fixing that, I'm also just going to plug this into our Google Sheet instead. So I'm gonna go to Sheets. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go search rows. I'll make this the beginning of my scenario instead of the Google Doc module. The reason for this is because I would just want to show you how to iterate through multiple. So I need to click here and I need to find the sheet that I am interested in. In order for that to work, I'm probably going to have to, what's this, content calendar? Just gonna have to match this up. The sheet name I want is sheet 1. Maximum number of return rows for now is just going to be 1. And let's just run this and see what we get. Okay, we get the article, and then the thing that's relevant to us down here is this article doc, and we're going to extract the ID of the article doc and then use it to feed into the Google Docs, downloaded document here. So the article doc is formatted like this. So if I just paste this in, you'll see that it's https://docs.google.com/document/d, and then we have what we want. And so as I've been doing this in a very hacky format until now, I'm just going to continue. I'm going to feed this in, and then I'm going to split it. And I'm going to split it at the presence of this \d\. And then I'm going to get the second result. Then I'm going to split this at the presence of this \edit. And then I'm going to get the first result. So now, if we were to just hard code this in, let's just download a document and feed in the URL. The document that was downloaded was the correct one. And so we only stripped the ID. That's really the only thing that mattered to us. Okay, great. And now we can pump this into 3 returned rows, which are all of the documents in our flow right now. And then we can click run once. And now this is going to do everything that we just did, but it's going to do it 3 times instead of just once. So we're going to have 3 published articles in Webflow. We'll have done basically automatically, which is pretty nice. So if I go back to Webflow, and I go back to this lovely blog, I got to refresh this again. You'll see that not only did we get the one that we wanted, which was this the first one, 10 effective ways to nurture mental health at work, which is now using, a different image because we're sourcing it differently every time. We also have 50+ RPA use cases, and then we have what is client onboarding automation. So if I just give one of these a quick little click, we have, what is client onboarding automation, brief little, summary or excerpt. We have an introduction, then we have a bunch of our headings. And so we basically just automated the process of getting 3 of these on Webflow in like a second. So, you probably wouldn't do it like this in practice. What you'd probably do is you would have an automation set up, instead of iterating through all of them, you'd watch new rows like this. And then every time, somebody in your team adds a new article or a new row, this would trigger, and then it would pull only the specific row that is in question here. So I don't know, let's say we added this row here, 3. It would pull only what is client onboarding automation. The automation would run, it would pull the Google Doc, slice it up like we did, convert it into HTML, back to Markdown, HTML, all that fun stuff, do the excerpt, and then publish it on Webflow. And then here is where you could tie this into, as I mentioned in my previous video, just a bunch of systems that enable you to, I don't know, maybe you want to post this on Facebook or something. You want to do Facebook, pages, create a post. And then down here, you want to go Twitter, and then you want to do create a post. And then, I don't know, you have a bunch of other ones here for different social media platforms. Maybe you want one for LinkedIn as well. You could do like LinkedIn, We could create a user text post or an organization post or whatnot. And down here is where you would, use AI to write these specific teasers or make them as long as you need them to be or whatnot. There's a lot of, freedom from that point on. You can do basically anything you want with that. Repurpose it, turn it into a video. You could throw it into like a bunch of other APIs and have it do something neat. Really, the opportunities are endless. All right, thanks so much for watching this video on posting content automatically in Webflow using make.com. As I mentioned earlier, there are a bunch of gotchas, so I hope that everything that I've talked about with my little text formatting hacks help. If you have any questions about this, feel free to just let me know in a comment down below. I source the vast majority of my now videos from my community, so if you're interested in checking out my community, as of the time of the recording, I have like 10 spots left or something like that before we hit 400. So if you see this and I'm still not at 400 and you really want to get in, I would recommend you get in now. There's not going to be another opportunity likely within the next couple of days. But of course, just make sure that it's the right decision for you. If you guys have anything else that you want me to answer, maybe anything that's been unclear, just leave a comment down below and I'll get to it. Otherwise, do all that fun YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, give me some love, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.